At the age of 19, Jinyan coaxed me to secretly taste the forbidden fruit. 6 years later he coaxed me back then. He hugged the young and delicate intern on his lap. Everyone thought that even if he bumped into him with his own eyes, he had another woman. I don't dare to mention the word breakup, but this time I suddenly got tired of it. On a rainstorm night, I dragged the suitcase and left. After a long time, Jinyan called casually. "It's raining too much. You can leave tomorrow." I didn't respond, and the mobile phone in my ear was suddenly taken away. He subconsciously turned around, but he leaned against the floor-to-ceiling window from behind. When the call was cut off, Shen Zongnian said in my ear, "Li man, it's raining so heavily. Why don't you stay at my house tonight?" 1. When I pushed the door in, a young girl is sitting on Jinyan's lap. Beige silk shirt, black one-step skirt. The unified dress of interns in the secretary's office. Slightly mature and intelligent, but the little girl wears green. Seeing me, the girl was embarrassed in an instant. That if you want to earn money, you have to come down from Jinyan. But he just raised his eyelids and gave me a faint look. But the hand held it tighter. "Don't be afraid, I'm here." He put his face on his face. The voice of coaxing people is extremely gentle. In a trance, I suddenly remembered that I was 19 years old. He also coaxed me in this way. Coaxed me to kiss and hug him. Coaxed me to follow him to the hotel to open a room. Coax me, "Don't be afraid, and give yourself to him with peace of mind." And now, the same words are the same tenderness. But it was used on younger girls. I suddenly laughed. Jinyan's body was stained with the SME of alcohol, and his eyes were full of confusion and drunkenness. "Li man, what are you laughing at?" I slowly restrained my smile and said softly, "Jinyan, that's all." 2. After saying that, I didn't wait for him to speak. He didn't pay attention to the sudden quiet crowd in the room. "It's just the plain ring that has been worn on the middle finger for 5 years. He gently took it off, and put it on the coffee table in front of Jinyan. I turned around and walked out. Jinyan didn't stop him. Naturally, he didn't get up and chase me. After 5 years of being together, he has already become a hot newcomer in Hong Kong. And I'm just a little anchor who doesn't fit in the TV station. Therefore, even if you bump into him with your own eyes, he has another woman. But no one believes that I will break up with you. When I closed the door, I heard a voice coming from behind me. "Sister Man just can't get off the stage for a while. Brother Yen, you go back at night to coax." "No need." Jinyan smiled and said, "Why don't you ask her if she dares to break up? After so many years, I have given her a place to settle down. I gave her a home." Jinyan was calm and leisurely, and he was tall. "She dares not, and she can't bear it." I clenched the doorknob and stood still. I straightened my spine, but my tears suddenly flowed. When he was young, he promised to give me a home. Therefore I, who is lonely, will be moved and fall. A few years later, the former promise has become the sharp sword that stabs my heart today. Sure enough, the closest people know best how to hurt you. 3. It took me 3 days to stay at home and pack my luggage. In the past 3 days, many mutual friends have been asking me sideways. I didn't reply. I just packed all my things one by one. The last night I was about to leave, I checked the whole house carefully. I was sure that I didn't even have a hair left, so I called a car. After the truck of the moving company pulled away all the luggage, it suddenly rained heavily on Hong Kong Island. Thunderstorm is the weather I fear most. When I was young, my parents both passed away in such a late night. And once upon a time, every rainy night like this, Jinyan would accompany me. I used to be extremely dependent on it. But now I don't need it. The taxi followed me and drove into the pouring rain all over the sky. I looked at the waterfall like water on the car window. I'm in a daze. The car suddenly got out of control and broke down, and suddenly stopped. The car behind didn't have time to dodge, and the rear end hit it. Fortunately, it's not serious. I looked back in shock. The rain is so heavy. The double-branded Rolls-Royce, like an ark on the sea, lurked still. Before the taxi driver said the curse, he suddenly shut his mouth. A black umbrella was held open, and the man in black business formal clothes got out of the car. The precious leather shoes stepped into the stream like rain, and walked to my car. The umbrella covers the pouring rain. Under the umbrella, the man's cold and heroic face appeared. I was extremely surprised and opened my eyes wide in astonishment. "Mr. Shen?" Shen Zongnian looked at me expressionlessly, and his eyes gradually filled with a sense of play. What a coincidence. 4. The car drove into the basement of Shen Zongnian's private residence. The driver just got out of the car. He raised his hand to pinch my jaw and kissed it directly. I was so scared that I tried my best to dodge, and pushed him hard. But Shen Zongnian directly held my wrist, and his voice was extremely cold. "When you lied to me at the beginning, did you think about today?" My wrist was pinched and hurt, but he was speechless and could only apologize. "Sorry, Shen Zongnian, sorry. Whether I knew it or not at the beginning, is it my intention?" However, Shen Zongnian's reputation was damaged when he was tricked. But it really happened. Don't use this sentence to perfunctory me. "Li man, I didn't touch you with a finger last time, but I was charged with rape. Then today, it's better to put this charge guilty." Shen Zongnian raised his hand to wipe off the water stains from the corners of my lips. I looked at him blankly and blankly. "Mr. Shen, Don't try to soften my heart. He slowly pulled down my shoulder strap. You should know very well that I have always been hard-hearted. I closed my eyes in despair, thinking of the storm that lasted for half a month, thinking of the relationship between the name Shen Zongnian and the rapist. Although the matter was suppressed, no one dared to mention it again. But at that time, his reputation was damaged by the storm, so he missed a big project. And that project finally fell into Gu Jinyan's hands. Therefore, even if this matter was just a coincidence and a misunderstanding, but Shen Zongnian will never believe it. How can a man like him be willing to swallow this anger? Isn't it okay not to be here? I gently grabbed his sleeve and tremblingly without hope. Please, Shen Zongnian. Shen Zongnian smiled very lightly. It's better to keep these words in bed. 5. In fact, in the past year, Gu Jinyan and I have rarely slept together. So much so that I almost forgot the taste of love for men and women. So much so that Shen Zongnian is not fully compatible with me. I couldn't help beating him in pain, and bit his arm again. Shen Zongnian, will you go out first? My whole body was shaking, and layers of sweat seeped out of my forehead. But Shen Zongnian also looks very uncomfortable. His face was tense, his throat rolled violently, and his voice was hoarse. It seems that your man is not good, Li Man. Can you not mention him? I lowered my eyes and said, Gu Jinyan and I have separated, and we have nothing to do with each other. Shen Zongnian suddenly glanced at me, and the next moment he was still unyielded, but he suddenly retreated and withdrew. I suddenly breathed a sigh of relief, and the knucks of his arms subconsciously loosened a little. But then, Shen Zongnian held my waist tightly. The ferocious bulging volcano hit the melting and hot magma. My fingertips fell into his flesh, and the sound was smashed to pieces. It's raining heavily outside the window. The noise all over the sky covered up all the sweet sounds in the room at this moment. In the early morning, the rain still didn't stop. Shen Zongnian came to the floor-to-ceiling window with me in his arms. The mobile phone suddenly rang over and over again, refusing to stop. But it was called by Gu Jinyan. I answered with trembling fingers. Did you move away? His voice was not emotional at all. My fingertips pressed against the cold glass and said in a hoarse voice, Yes. When? Tonight. It's raining too much. You can leave tomorrow. His voice sounds careless. It's so ridiculous. Before I responded, the mobile phone in my ear was suddenly pulled away. Subconsciously turning around, Shen Zongnian had already pressed me against the floor-to-ceiling window. He glanced at the on-screen of his mobile phone, pressed it to my ear, and cut off the call. It's raining so heavily, Li Man. Why don't you stay at my house tonight? I shook my head, and my wet hair stuck to my back. Black and white bring a shocking visual impact. Shen Zongnian lowered his head and kissed the side of my neck. Do it again. I didn't refuse but just asked softly, Tu-ching okay? The mood in Shen Zongnian's eyes suddenly became cold. He smiled and held my long hair with his fingers. If you want 2 clears, it's okay. The long wet hair wrapped around his slender fingers. He tried a little harder and asked me to stick to him. The other hand strangled my jaw and lifted my face. The night was dark, but his eyes were deeper than this night. Then let me take that charge, Li Man. In this way it's too clear. 6. My scalp felt numb. In fact, Shen Zongnian didn't use force on his hands. In fact, I can feel that he has been restrained all the time before tonight. Otherwise, I'm afraid I would have been torn and injured long ago. After all, the physical gap between us is too big. If he has a heart, he will have to breathe out. The charge should be acquitted. I am the only one who suffers. Maybe it's because we did the most intimate thing between men and women tonight. And once men and women cross that line, many things will change their taste invisibly. Inexplicably, I didn't have much fear. He looked up at him like that, and even smiled. Shen Zongnian, then sit down. It's just a little. I stepped up slightly, and took the initiative to kiss the corners of his lips. I don't want to get hurt. After all, my job needs to be on the camera. It was about the first time I took the initiative to please him. When he lowered his eyes to cater to my kiss, his voice also lowered a little. Li Man, you have a second choice. What choice? Take the initiative to make me happy, maybe. I'll let you go. 7. I opened my eyes wide in an instant. Shen Zongnian is different from Gu Jinyan. His style has always been not good. It is said that the road to the top is not clean. But in recent years, as his business empire has gradually increased, the person also gradually lost the spirit of Jianghu on his body. I still remember when he was interviewed by a financial newspaper last year. Noble and calm and restrained. Some media people even flattered him, and praised him as a Confucian merchant. Therefore, many people almost forget it. Shen Zongnian is not a young master, who has been cultivated by decades of hard work from a rich family. Even more than 10 years ago, he still ate at the dock. There is no gentlemanly bone in his bones at all. What? Shen Zongnian hooked the corners of his lips. Are you afraid? I shook my head, but I couldn't help biting my lip. No, I can't. The smile on the corners of Shen Zongnian's lips gradually faded. After so many years of dating, the person surnamed Gu hasn't taught you? I haven't opened my mouth yet. Shen Zongnian said again. Didn't you do it that night? My face turned red in an instant. At that time, I only thought that I was drunk, that I lost my posture. But it was only later that he reacted slowly. There is something unclean in my wine. Otherwise, no matter how drunk I am, I can't do such a scandal as holding a man without letting go and taking off other people's clothes. At that time, I should have had something unclean in my wine, so I did that. Shen Zongnian looked down at me, and there was no smile on his face. Didn't you ask Gu Jinyan to put anything for you? I was a little stunned. Mr. Shen, that was just an accident. But after saying this, I couldn't help but feel a little confused in my heart. When Gu Jinyan snatched the project, I also wondered if he was a trick on me, but at that time, the relationship between me and Gu Jinyan had not broken down. People always favor the person they like in their hearts. Now Gu Jinyan and I have completely separated. Therefore, some ideas suddenly began to change. Shen Zongnian suddenly let go of his hand. He looked at my eyes with a little careless interest. I'm going to take a shower. After saying that, he turned around and went directly to the bathroom. 8. When Shen Zongnian came out of the bathroom, I was still standing by the window. It rained all night. The whole Hong Kong island was swallowed up by the water mist all over the sky. I can't see anything outside. I stood there in a dast. Shen Zongnian hugged me from the back. He still had cold water vapor on his body, and I couldn't help shivering. What are you thinking about? Think about what I just said. Shen Zongnian sneered. You'd better think about how to let me go. Shen Zongnian, I'm not in the mood. But before I finished my words, he bowed his head and kissed me fiercely. Li Man, in front of me, you are still thinking about other men. Do you think I treated you very well twice before? The force of his kiss on me gradually increased, but there was a piece of frost and snow in the bottom of his eyes. I suddenly felt a little scared. At this moment, Shen Zongnian is completely different from before. I can really feel it from his eyes. Again this time, he will no longer be soft-hearted to me. Shen Zongnian. The desire to survive made me put down all my self-esteem. It is said that when Shen Zong was young, he was liked by a big boss because he was ruthless and ruthless, so that he walked flat on the green clouds and flew to the sky. People like him don't attach great importance to human life. I took the initiative to hug his neck while catering to his kiss. You just told me to take the initiative. I won't, but I will learn. Can you teach me? I will definitely study hard. After the long kiss, Shen Zongnian smiled. All right. 9. When he straddled his muscular waist and abdomen, my face is so red that I can't see it. But Shen Zongnian raised his hand again and lifted my long hair hanging on his chest behind him. I bit my lip and wanted to hold my arm to cover my chest, but he grabbed my wrist again. Shen Zongnian. I looked at him in a daze, with tears in my eyes, but he was not moved at all. Li Man. Shen Zongnian's voice was also cold. I've done it all. Don't cover it up so pretentiously. Also, it's raining heavily outside. You can speak louder. I shook my head with tears in my eyes. I can't do it. Shen Zongnian, please. Don't force me. I really can't do it. I lowered my head and tears fell on his chest drop by drop. I was afraid that he would be angry, so I wanted to pull out my hand to wipe it off, but he clenched it tighter. 10. Shen Zongnian didn't say anything, just looking at the woman who straddled himself and shed tears silently. She is not the most beautiful. The figure is also too slender. The personality is not particularly pleasing. My eyes turn red and I cry at any time. He only said a little point in a few words. She seemed to be so scared. It's as if he can kill her at any time. There is also a boyfriend who has just broken up with him for 6 years. Shen Zongnian's eyebrows frowned slightly. He never thought of getting involved with such a woman. But what's ridiculous is, after the strong girl did the attempt, he often thinks of that night outrageously. I remembered the way she took off his clothes and rode on him, thinking of him clasping her wrist to not allow her to make trouble. She was so wrong that she burst into tears. If it's a good look. Over the years, there are as many women who want to attack him as crossing the river. It's not that I haven't seen it after taking off my clothes. But he has never reacted like this. Even later he often regretted it. That night, why didn't you go with the flow? He simply acquitted the charge. So much so that he feels that he has become a pervert now. Let people stare at Li Man and Gu Jinyan 24 hours a day. It started the minute when she moved out of Gu Jinyan's house. He followed her car like a stalker. The moment when Li Man was taken away, he blamed everything on his desire for revenge. But he obviously wanted to take revenge on her. But I can't help but care about her feelings and experiences. Even the previous 2 times he has been holding back. It's not completely indulgent at all. Even so, Li Man still seems to have suffered a great injustice. Just now, he was still helping Gu Jinyan to get rid of such a scum. In fact, he really wanted to throw her directly into the heavy rain outside to get sober and thoroughly. But in the end, I went to the bathroom to take a cold shower. Shen Zongnian looked down on himself like this. Since he was a child, he has thought that how a man can be pinched by a woman. He will definitely not be soft-hearted this time. But when Li Man lowered his head and shed tears, his heart was softened by her tears. Shen Zongnian raised his hand. The slightly rough fingers fell on the full lips of Li Man. She was born petite and slender, but the cherry-colored little mouth has full and slightly fleshy lips. It feels really good to kiss. So much, so that he seems to prefer to kiss her than to do it with her. I prefer to make her cry and dirty. 11. Why are you crying? Shen Zongnian pinched my chin. I had to raise my face, but tears rolled down again. I just said a few words to you. And you haven't done anything yet. Shen Zongnian brushed away the tears from the corners of my eyes. You cry like this. People who don't know think that I'm really a strong girl who has done you. I'm sorry. I looked at him in a daze, but my tears couldn't stop. All it. Shen Zongnian suddenly straightened up and took me off him. The thin quilt that was pulled to one side wrapped around me. If you don't cry now, we'll go to bed. I couldn't believe it, so I looked at him with tears in my eyes. If you are stupid, you usually don't move. Shen Zongnian hooked his lips. What, don't you want to sleep? I shook my head vigorously, and immediately closed my eyes. Shen Zongnian also lifted the quilt and lay down. I curled up subconsciously to stay away from him, but Shen Zongnian directly pulled me into his arms. Li Man. Sleep honestly and don't move around. Otherwise, start the fire, and you are responsible for extinguishing it yourself. Got it. I lay down honestly and didn't dare to move, until Shen Zongnian's breathing tended to stabilize. I was just probing and carefully moving my almost stiff body, but just about to come out of his arms. Shen Zongnian turned over, and pressed me under him. Li Man. I said don't seduce me. I didn't. If I say yes, I will have it. In the dark, Shen Zongnian bowed his head and kissed me. He seems to like kissing very much. And this kiss is particularly long. When the kiss was over, I suddenly noticed it. That I don't know when. Shen Zongnian and I have already been deeply compatible. And the experience of this time is obviously different from the previous 2 times. I grabbed his arm with some fear. Shen Zongnian. It's really too deep. I'm so scared that my whole body trembles uncontrollably. Shen Zongnian's strong arms are on both sides of my body. He bent down and breathed past my ear. Li Man. Has he been here? I just felt a bang in my mind. Tears gushed out from the bottom of my eyes. But I couldn't tell whether it was physiological pleasure or fear that had never had such an experience. But the fingers holding his arm were already weak. I feel like a Hong Kong island soaked in heavy rain. The next second, it will be smashed by the strong external force. The sound of rain is noisy. In the dark room, Shen Zongnian suddenly grabbed my hand and put it on his lower abdomen. The tight muscles are all covered with watermarks. Li Man. His voice was hoarse and low, but with a trace of joy. Look, you are worse than the heavy rain outside. My whole body is drowsy. Just like a small boat drifting with the flow on the rough sea. I can't understand what he said. I just felt that my boat was going to be smashed by the waves in the next second. The heavy rain in Hong Kong didn't get me wet. You made me so wet. Li Man, how do you want to pay? 12. When I woke up again, it was already sunny. Shen Zongnian is not in the room. I went to the bathroom and soaked in the bathtub for a long time. But my mind is still a mess. Come out of the bathroom in charge, and turn on the mobile phone. Countless text messages and unreceived calls poured in. Several of them were called by Jinyan. I didn't dial back, but just deleted all his contact information. I asked for leave before, so I don't have to go to work in the station these days. The moving company has also sent all my luggage to the newly rented apartment. The monthly rent of less than 20 square meters is nearly 20,000 yuan. For me, it's a big expense. Fortunately, Jinyan has been generous to me these years. I also saved a lot of money, so I don't have to worry about my daily life. That at present, the only trouble is Shen Zongnian. But after I went downstairs, I didn't see anyone else at all. After eating in the restaurant, I tentatively proposed to leave. The servants of the Shen family didn't stop me either. Instead, I sent a driver to send me back to the apartment politely. I pondered all the way, finally draw a conclusion. The debt between me and Shen Zongnian should have been paid off. This conclusion made me feel relieved. It's a good thing to have 2 clears. After all, a man like Shen Zongnian is really difficult to serve. It's just that for one night, I feel like I've been squeezed out. If we are together night after night, my life will not be saved. 13. The newly rented apartment is not big, and I don't have much luggage, but most of the day was properly arranged. It is enough for me to live in a small apartment with 1 bedroom and 1 living room, although it is not as good as Jinyan's large flat-floor mansion. But now lying in my own bed, I feel at ease. The afternoon sun was so warm that I didn't know when I fell asleep. In the dream, I went back to the year when I was 19 years old. Jinyan coaxed me. We tasted the forbidden fruit in the hotel room. After that, I kept crying, because of pain and fear. He hugged me tightly, put a plain ring on my middle finger. Man, when you graduate, we will get married. I shed tears in my dream, but I know very well that the tears were not for Jinyan. It's for the 19-year-old silly Li Man. For the lonely Li Man who longs to have a family. Point 14. After deleting all Jinyan's contact methods, he never looked for me again. I also faded away from those circles in the past. Therefore, the news about him is rarely heard again. After the holiday, I went back to work in Taiwan. But suddenly I heard of very unexpected news. Shui Jiaoyi, another female anchor who has always been not very suitable for me. Unexpectedly, Jinyan, a newcomer from Hong Kong Island, was invited to her program. The whole stage caused a sensation. After all, almost all people in Hong Kong know it. Jinyan never participates in any program. Even interviews are never accepted. I sat at my desk and was a little stunned. At the beginning, my program was too cold to clean up. It was almost cut off by the platform. At that time, Jinyan had just emerged. Because of his handsome style, he is very popular. The leaders of the station tried to invite him to the program, or be interviewed several times, but they were rejected. I also had such an idea. I even just begged him to accept a faceless written interview. The relationship between us will not be made public. Jinyan also refused me. But now, he wants to be on Shuejiao's program. Not even put forward any harsh rules. The problems prepared in the station also cover a wide range. There are also the audience's favorite emotional issues. But he knew that Shuejiao and I had a bad relationship. When we started our internship after graduation, she was determined to trample on me. Jinyan did it on purpose. It's just that I don't understand. That he has an outer heart and a new love. I broke up and moved to make room for the newcomer. Shouldn't he thank me? If I don't understand, I won't think much about it. Anyway, this is also Shuejiao's own ability and luck. At present, I have no other choice. You can only do your job well first. But in the afternoon, I was rejected by the new film queen agent again. I'm not surprised. After all, this program has always been lukewarm. Most of the guests who can be invited are just coffee shops. Man, hurry up and figure it out. Shuejiao's program will definitely be popular. It will be logical to cut off our column at that time. I know. I'll think of a way again. If only boss Shen Zongnian could be invited. Of course, I'm just dreaming. The partner sighed and shook his head again. Shuejiao is really lucky. In fact, the station was going to cut off her column. Who knew that she invited Jinyan? Man, you think there won't be anything between her and Jinyan, right? I thought for a moment. I heard that Jinyan has a girlfriend. Shuejiao should have nothing to do with him. But I was slapped in the face soon. In the afternoon, Shuejiao received 999 red roses. When he got off work at 6 o'clock, Jinyan's Bentley stopped at the main gate downstairs of the TV station. Shuejiao changed into a beautiful chest skirt and jumped into Jinyan's car happily. 15. At 9 p.m., I browsed Shuejiao's ins. The restaurant that Jinyan took her to was my favorite revolving restaurant. There are 3 dishes in the photo, all of which are my favorites. The man holding the knife and fork has slender fingers, and he also wears a plain ring on his middle finger. I have been watching it for 6 years, and I am very familiar with it. It's Jinyan's. I smiled and put down my mobile phone to take a shower. When coming out of the bathroom, a former friend suddenly called. I pressed the answer, and what came to my ear was Jinyan's voice. Li Man. His voice was a little cold, with obvious drunkenness. When you move back, I will be on your program. I couldn't help laughing. Jinyan, I decided on the day I left and won't go back. Li Man, you should be very clear. If I really watch Shuejiao's program, your program will be cut off, and you will lose your job. So what? Jinyan's voice suddenly became gentle. I have fired the intern. Also, I didn't touch her. Li Man, you don't have family, and your relatives are also estranged. You should know very well that I am the only one you can rely on. Jinyan, that's what I used to think. But now, I don't need it anymore. Li Man, don't be so wayward. Don't call me again in the future. After saying that, I hung up the phone. My friend's phone number was also blacklisted by me. Those friends were originally Jinyan's friends. When we broke up, there was no need to continue to talk. The mobile phone suddenly rang again. It's a strange number. Naturally, I thought it was Jinyan's call, so I hung up directly and blocked it. A moment later, another strange number sent a message. Li Man, try to hang up on me again. I was a little stunned and replied, "Excuse me, who is it?" The phone came back soon. I hesitated for a moment and picked up, but it was Shen Zongnian's voice. Li Man, you are getting bolder and bolder. Sorry, I didn't know it was your phone. Then whose phone number do you think it is, Jinyan? Yes. The phone suddenly hung up. That I was a little confused, but I didn't call again. Until I was about to fall asleep, the number called again. Li Man opened the door. 16. My bedroom is very small, and the bed is even smaller. The bathroom is also small and pitiful. Shen Zongnian came in after taking a shower, glanced at my bed and frowned. I'll sleep on the sofa. I stood up and was about to go out. A single bed of 1 and 2 meters. It's hard for him to sleep alone. Shen Zongnian closed the bedroom door directly. I'm here to sleep with you, not to sleep in bed. My face is a little hot. Speak up, don't talk nonsense, this house is not soundproof. Shen Zongnian took off the bath towel and threw it aside. He glared at me condescendingly. It's you who should whisper. When he pressed me on the bed, Shen Zongnian said again, cry less. Lest the next door hear it, and think I'm killing a strong woman. I couldn't help glaring at him. Can you stop talking about these 2 words? Shen Zongnian took off my nightgown and hooked his lips indifferently. Isn't it your gift? That I was speechless and had to shut up. The bed is too small to open. The house was not soundproof, and I bit my lip tightly, and didn't make a sound at all. Shen Zongnian was not happy. You will move tomorrow and don't live here. Where to move? I can't afford to rent a better house, and you don't know the house price in Hong Kong. I'll buy you a house. Shen Zongnian bowed his head and kissed me again. I'll move tomorrow. I was just about to refuse. Shen Zongnian said again, if you move there obediently, I will be on your program. Really? Of course it's true. But one thing, the interview question is provided by me. 17. The news that Shen Zongnian was going to appear on my program spread on the station the next day. And what makes everyone even more excited is the blockbuster news of the nuclear explosion, brought by Shen Zongnian's secretary. Mr. Shen will officially announce a good news on the program. The only thing I can reveal is the good news about feelings. The leaders on the stage were so happy. My partner is also very excited. A legendary boss like Shen Zongnian participated in a live broadcast on the TV station for the first time in his life. This is 100 times more to see than Gu Jinyan's program. After all, more than 10 years ago, Shen Zongnian was still moving goods at the dock. Now he is a big man who stirs up the storm in Hong Kong Island. Who is not curious about such a man? After the excitement faded, I made a cup of coffee by myself. Sitting at the desk, I was stunned for a while. Shen Zongnian is going to announce a good news on the program. If I guess correctly, it should be related to his marriage. Who will be his fiancée? Nowadays, there are many celebrities who favor him in Hong Kong. Several big families have the intention to marry him. Shen Zongnian was not born well, although he is now successful in his career. But when it comes to the foundation, it is still not as good as those rich families. He should marry a rich lady from a good background. Of course, all this has nothing to do with me. But last night, he said he would buy me a house and let me move in. So, do you want me to be his lover? Although I'm a gentle person, I'm just an ordinary TV anchor. But I will never agree to be a lover. Even if he is Shen Zongnian. Even if I follow him, I can ascend to the sky in one step. 18. I didn't move to the house that Shen Zongnian sent me. The next day, he handed the resignation letter to Tylee again. If you refuse Shen Zongnian, the program will naturally die young. I am still a defeated general under Shui Jiaoyi this time. Instead of waiting for the program to be cut off, it's better to resign by yourself. But the leader on the stage looked a little strange. Li Man, you really can't resign now. Why? Because Gu Jinyan also wants to be on your program. He pushed Shui Jiaoyi's program, and wanted to be on your program with Shen Zongnian. I was stunned. Is Gu Jinyan crazy? Or did I have a problem with my ears and mishear? Li Man, Shen Zongnian has agreed. Moreover, Gu Jinyan also wants to officially announce a good news on the program. If this news is released, the whole port city will explode. Li Man, this is a great blessing. When this program is broadcast, you will become famous in the First World War. You'd better take back the resignation letter first. The leader handed me the resignation letter. Go back and get ready. We will start recording and preparing for the broadcast tomorrow. Be sure to get the best state out. On the way back to the office, I met Shui Jiaoyi. She has a lot of makeup, her eyes are red and swollen, and she looks like she has just cried. When she saw me, she almost bit her silver teeth. Li Man, blame you, you bitch. It's all you. You ruined everything about me. Gu Jinyan is obviously your boyfriend, but you asked him to tease me like this. What kind of heart do you have? How can there be a vicious woman like you? Shui Jiaoyi seemed to be crazy all of a sudden, grabbing a flower pot and smashing it at me. I was wearing high heels, and almost tripped over the carpet while dodging. I can only hold my head helplessly, but the flower pot didn't hit me. Shen Zongnian didn't know when he arrived. He stood in front of me. The flower pot hit his forehead and soon bled. The stage was in a mess. Shui Jiaoyi was pulled out by the security guard. Someone made an emergency call. I sat on the ground blankly, covering the wound on Shen Zongnian's forehead. Blood gushed out of my fingers, warm and sticky. My consciousness has just returned to the cage little by little. Shen Zongnian. I shouted his name in a dame. Tears fell down with it. Maybe the tears are too fierce. Shen Zongnian pulled the corners of his mouth and smiled. Li Man, why are you crying again? 19. Don't talk. You are bleeding, Shen Zongnian. So, I'm bleeding, why are you crying? I couldn't answer. I just looked at his bloody face and kept shedding tears. Shen Zongnian was sent to the emergency room for sewing. I sat on the bench in the corridor, until he was pushed to the ward by the nurse, and asked me to go there. I looked at his forehead with gauze and bandages. Such a tall and strong man is now lying there, but his face is a little weak and pale. Does it hurt? I held back my tears and asked him in a low voice. Would you like some water? Shen Zongnian nodded and shook his head again. Sit here. I sat down beside him obediently. Li Man, kiss me. Come here and kiss me. Shen Zongnian, you are still hurt. It's just a wound on the forehead. I'm going to pour you a glass of water. I stood up and wanted to leave. Shen Zongnian suddenly moaned in a low voice. I was shocked and hurried to see the wound on his forehead. Shen Zongnian put his arms around my waist, and took me directly into his arms. He kissed me with his face up, and the kiss went deeper and deeper and deeper, until I was out of breath. Li Man, why are you so kissy? Shen Zongnian's fingers rubbed my slightly swollen lips. Suddenly, he lowered his voice and said something dirty. I blushed in an instant and pushed him away. Don't even think about it. Shen Zongnian raised his eyebrows like a scoundrel. Can't even think about it? I can't even think about it. I glared at him. Scoundrel. Hooligan. That's right. 13 years ago I was a scoundrel. I'll ignore you. Shen Zongnian suddenly smiled and said, Li Man, I'm injured. Cook some soup for me tonight. Let your servant cook. After saying that, I actually regretted it. Anyway, Shen Zongnian suffered this injury for me. I can only know the simplest lily silver ear soup. Coincidentally, my favorite is this soup. Then I'll do it for you tonight. Shen Zongnian smiled deeper at the corners of his lips. Well, then do your best at night. I always feel that what he said is a little disgusting, but I think I should think too much. It's just that I cook soup for him at night. After drinking 2 bowls, he shouted dizzy and asked me to help him back to the room. I knew that I didn't wrong this scoundrel, who was full of thinking about doing things. 20. And that night was also the first time in my life to take the initiative. Take the initiative to help him take off his clothes and take a shower. He took the initiative to straddle his waist and abdomen, and swallowed him clumsily little by little. But I neglect exercise and lack physical strength. But after a few minutes, he cheated and refused to move again. Shen Zongnian was not annoyed. Maybe it's because of the injury. It smells like a breeze and drizzle tonight, but I like it very much. In the end, I fell asleep comfortably in his arms. I don't even remember how to take a shower. When I woke up the next day, Shen Zongnian was still sleeping. I stood by the bed and looked at him for a while. I thought about a lot of things again. Originally, when I knew that he was about to get engaged, I decided not to entangle with him anymore. But he was injured because of me yesterday. That night, let's take it as a draw. It seems that from the beginning, between me and Shen Zongnian, I'm not thinking about how to clear the two, or I'm thinking about how to qualify. But in any case, there is a beginning and an end. I didn't wake him up. After taking a shower, he left Shen Zongnian's villa. Shui Jiaoyi was taken away by the police. Mei faced detention. That I submitted my resignation letter again. When I came out of the stage, I met Gu Jinyan. Li Man. He called me to stop. Stand in the bright summer sunshine. Still handsome and destracious. But it is no longer what I once loved. Are you going to resign? Yes. Don't you like this job very much? I really like this job. It's just that now, I'm really a little exhausted. There is no background, and refuses to accept unspoken rules. Then I can only sit on the cold bench. And if you want to cling to men and climb up, you will always be inferior to others. It's better not to do it. I have always been in favor of you coming out to work. It's hard and the salary is low. Gu Jinyan came to me. Isn't it good to be a full-time wife? I told you when I first made money. I don't want my wife to go out and work hard. Now, since you have resigned, then come home with me, man. I'll support you in the future. He held my hand naturally. It seems that he has never had an affair with the intern. I haven't slept with other women. It's like we've never been separated. The sun is gradually dazzling. I couldn't help squinting my eyes and felt that how could Gu Jinyan in front of me lose his face to such a point? I withdrew my hand. Gu Jinyan, we broke up long ago. Man, alright, I know I made you angry last time. But after so long, your anger should be over. I'm not angry. I looked at him calmly. Gu Jinyan, I'm serious. The smile on his face finally dissipated little by little. Li Man, you are already 25 years old. Don't be so capricious and childish. If you don't have a job, leave me. How will you survive in the port city in the future? Seeing that I didn't speak, he slowed down again. Haven't you always wanted to marry me and have a family? Li Man, I'm ready for the wedding room. That's what we've seen before. The villa on the top of the mountain on the other side of Baijia Road. Decorate and arrange it as you like, okay? I want to refuse, but I haven't said anything yet. Shen Zongnian's voice suddenly sounded not far away. So Li Man, you refused to move to the house I gave you, because the house he gave you is bigger than mine? 21. Shen Zongnian leaned on the car like that, biting a cigarette at the corner of his mouth. A stingy scoundrel. The wound on his head was almost touched, and a bright red appeared on the bandage. I frowned in an instant. You can't smoke now. Shen Zongnian raised his hand to pick the cigarette, but he didn't extinguish it. But as far as I know, I bought the largest mountaintop villa in Baijiadao. The building he bought is not as big as mine. Li Man, you can think clearly. Don't pick up sesame seeds and throw watermelons away. Gu Jinyan's face turned pale. Shen Zongnian, what do you mean? Shen Zongnian spread his hands. Isn't this very clear? Give my woman a house. Your woman. Gu Jinyan suddenly clenched his teeth. When did she become your woman? Shen Zongnian smiled and said, didn't you send her to me at the beginning? The expression on Gu Jinyan's face suddenly changed. Shen Zongnian didn't talk nonsense with him anymore. I asked Li Man to put away the wine and drinks that he drank at the beginning, and now they have all been delivered to the police. Mr. Gu, if you are wronged, the law will naturally vindict you. But if you are really the culprit, the law will never forgive you. I won't spare you either. Shen Zongnian extinguished the cigarette, and the police car had arrived at this time. He stopped talking and walked to me past Gu Jinyan, who was full of decadent face. Li Man, I have been a good person for nearly 5 years. Now can I like you? 22. I suddenly opened my eyes wide. The hot wind blew. The memory, which was almost completely annihilated, suddenly roared. It's a girl who just lost her parents in the sea disaster. He is a gangster teenager, who eats a bite of rice on the dock with blood and sweat. Two people who shouldn't have intersected. Suddenly, there was an intersection because of that change. The anxious girl wiped the blood on the face of the teenager injured in the fight. He also put the cartoon bandage in his school bag on the wound on his forehead. The teenager was in a daze, holding on to her snow-white skirt, and refusing to let go. Soft-hearted and kind, she sat on the dirty ground with him in her arms and never left. Later, when they separated, the teenager asked the thin girl, "What's your name? Can I come to you in the future? Can I like you?" The girl stuffed the band-aid and change in her school bag into him. Hearing this, he just pursed his lips and smiled. "Then you have to be a good person. A boy who fights can't like me, and I won't like him either. If I become a good person, can I like you? Of course, it's also a very happy thing to be liked." She waved to him and said, "I'm leaving. I won't come here again." She lost her parents and went to a relative's house to borrow. "I'm going to leave here, go to a new school, and start a new completely different life." Later, when she grew up, she had already forgotten that little thing. She also met a handsome boy she liked, that he foolishly handed over his heart. And in the long river of time, there was a person who forgot her for a minute. No one knows how much he has suffered to get to this day. Only then did I become a good person. But at that time, the person in his heart already had someone he liked. But even so, he didn't think about finding other women and liking other people. Until that night. Until that accident happened. In fact, such a clumsy means, a person like him who has experienced countless ups and turns, saw through it at a glance. But at that time, he only had one thought in his mind. Don't hurt her, don't make her sad. So he swallowed that breath. He didn't take revenge on Gu Jinyan, until the person who had been following her said that she was packing, and was about to move out of Gu Jinyan's house. Until he saw her leave with the box with his own eyes. He didn't want to endure it for a second and waited again. "Bring her back to your home." 23. Is it you? Almost vague memory, a little bit of recovery is clear. And Shen Zongnian in front of him. And the teenager with an inch head, and a tattoo on his arm. It can't overlap no matter what. "Your tattoo. It has been washed away long ago. It's just that I didn't have money at that time. So I left a scar." Shen Zongnian rolled up his sleeves, and let me see his arms. There are indeed a few clear scars. "Li Man, you haven't answered me yet." Shen Zongnian's expression was extremely serious. "Are you sure you are a good person now? Which good family will be like you?" Shen Zongnian frowned slightly. "Li Man." He stepped forward and directly bowed his head and kissed me. "It's still the best when I kiss you." In the blue sky and the day, people come and go. I stretched out my hand to push him away, but he covered the wound on his head again and groaned. "Li Man, my wound hurts." I was so scared that I didn't dare to move. Shen Zongnian kissed me with satisfaction for a long time and said again, "Will you help me cook soup tonight? The beauty you want. Li Man, why are you full of unhealthy things? I just asked you to help me cook soup. I don't mean anything else." Shen Zongnian looked very serious. I can't help but doubt whether I am really dirt. "Seriously?" Shen Zongnian nodded very seriously. I got into his car half-heartedly. After cooking the silver-eared lily soup, he drank another big bowl. Then he tricked me into helping him upstairs, because he was injured and dizzy. This help went to the bed. When he held me and sat on me, I raised my hand to stop him. "Shen Zongnian, you said you were going to officially announce a happy event. What is it?" There are some things I always have to ask clearly. After all, even if I have a little heart for him, even if we have a connection when we were young, but I don't want to be a third party, and I can't see the light. If he really wants to marry someone else, if it's broken now, it won't be too painful. Shen Zongnian lay on the bed and looked at me frowning. "Li Man, I'm like this. Do you still have the heart to ask this?" That I glanced down and swallowed my saliva. But I am a very principled person, and some questions must be asked clearly. Do you want to say it or not? If you don't say that I'm leaving now. Shen Zong pinched my waist and pressed me down directly. "What else? I'm 28 years old, and naturally I want to get married." "Who will you marry?" "The woman who took off my pants for the first time in many years." Shen Zongnian. I was so angry that I rushed over to beat him. Shen Zongnian looked at me with a smile and did not hide. He let me hit him several times. "Have you played enough?" He sat up slowly and slapped my buttock with a very light slap. "Now it's my turn to hit." "Shen Zongnian." I stared at him angrily. Shen Zongnian lowered his head and kissed me gently. "Li Man, I have liked you for many, many years." Full text finished.